Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 145 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. We got a jam-packed show today.
We do, but if I sound a little less dulcety than usual, it's because I am using a terrible, cheap Logitech mic.
Yeah. We're going to, I think, basically this week, Tim has had, after his move, has had some interesting luck, so to speak. So basically, we've already negotiated the deal with Shudder. We're going to be on we're the first segment on the Cursed podcast episodes that are coming out.
One of the casualties of the move, unfortunately, one of the few casualties, actually, usually a little bit more stuff gets broken, but in this case, it was my most valuable piece of equipment for the podcast. My Yeti mic, the USB jack apparently got bent in the move, and it won't power up or do anything now, so I had to scramble to try to find a mic. I wound up just finding this cheap $20 headset in a box somewhere that I had to use, so I'm apologize for the audio quality. We pride ourselves in our audio quality, typically, and unfortunately for this week's show and probably next week's show, I'm not going to sound as good until I can get my new Yeti mic on order. So again, apologies for that, but the show must go on, right?
Yeah. The interview we have coming up, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that'll be, that's actually, the quality on that is really good because we do that via Zoom, so that one kind of balances everything out.
Well, the quality is good for you guys. It's not good for me because I sound terrible going through my laptop mic, so I'll have to apologize for that in advance as well. I don't sound good on that interview either, and that's because
I didn't think it sounded that bad, though, when I heard it, but I don't know.
Yeah, when you hear the actual file when it comes back, it's really muffled. But I don't talk that much in the interview, so unfortunately...
What are you trying to say, that I monopolized it with my
No,
big New York mouth?
I'm saying Lauren Marie was so gracious to speak at such length that you'll get to hear her and you don't have to listen to me drone on.
Hopefully I get drowned out a little too, because I know I ramble. So
No, it turned out really, really great. It's one of our best interviews ever, for sure.
Nice.
But again, I apologize for the audio quality on that interview because that was going through my business laptop microphone, which is a terrible microphone. We're not going to use that mic for future Zoom interviews, so don't worry, I'll rectify that situation as well. So bear with us for the audio issues the next few episodes, but we're going to get it straightened out. And we did want to give you a programming note on last week. As you know, we had the George Floyd incident and the protests going on. And we had originally planned to release our June dismemberment last week, albeit a little late because of my internet issues. Again, like I said, we're a cursed podcast the last couple of weeks. And we would plan to release it on Tuesday. Well, then, of course, Tuesday, there was the hashtag blackout movement, and we did not feel it was appropriate to release the episode on Tuesday. So we decided, well, maybe we'll release it on Wednesday. And when Wednesday came around, this movement had been growing. We had a bunch of other fellow horror podcasts and non-horror podcasts that we really respect that were not going to release an episode out of respect for the protests going on and the cause that it represented. And, of course, we believed in that cause as well. So that's why we decided to just not release an episode at all last week, and I hope everyone understands why that was. We wanted to express solidarity with those other podcasts and for the movement. That's an explanation of last week. We hope everybody was okay with that. I think it was the right decision. And of course, we strongly believe in the Black Lives Matter movement and anti-police brutality and all of that these protesters are out there fighting for. So we hope everybody understands that, and we will be back to normal shows as you're listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, what we did was such a small piece to what needs to happen, but the best thing to do is do what you can and just keep on going until the change is made. So whether it be little bits here to start and I know a lot of people are doing a lot, which we 100% support, and we try and share all that kind of info last week too. So so I just, we just felt that was way more important to do than a horror podcast. So
yeah, especially one centered on ours, which is around comedy and stuff. It just didn't feel appropriate.
Right.
All right, so let's get to this week's episode. We do have an unfortunate passing.
Yeah, this was a couple of weeks ago, I think, actually. But it got announced, I think, about a week after it happened. So by now it's a couple of weeks old, but we felt basically big fans of his contribution, so we needed to mention it.
Yeah, and this was, of course, we're speaking of Ron Kurtz, who was a screenwriter of Friday the 13th Part 2, Final Chapter, and Part 3.
Yeah, and it just happens to be that we have Laura Marie Taylor from Friday the 13th Part 2 on, so it's kind of almost, it was not planned, it just happened, but it'll be a nice way to talk about, I guess, one of his works.
Yep, so let's get right into it. This is our first chop. All right, Brian, despite all the mayhem and chaos going on over here, I did manage to get one more movie in my Hammer horror project completed, and that was one I was really looking forward to. Horror of Dracula, 1958. This is the debut of Christopher Lee as Dracula, and launched a number of fantastic Hammer Dracula films with Mr. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And I probably had seen this way back many, many years ago, but I didn't remember much about it, honestly. I had strong imagery of Christopher Lee as Count Dracula because he was in that old hardcover horror movie book I had as a kid, where you had the red, like really red bloodshot eyes and the blood trickling out of the corners of his mouth, which I have to think is responsible for many a Halloween costume. The stereotypical Dracula with blood at the corners of his mouth. I think that all came from this movie.
Yeah, and you could even get it. Remember those kits, those makeup kits you could get where it had the fangs?
Yeah.
And then like a little black eyeliner or whatever pen, like little like the makeup pen, and the blood that you could drip that they'd show dripping out of the corner of the mouth. So it was like they even like that was like really like that led to the little makeup kits you could get around Halloween.
Yeah,
so that's a very iconic look.
Yeah, in a way, Christopher Lee's portrayal was almost as iconic as Bela Lugosi's portrayal in Dracula in a different way. But I will have to say that this is a fantastic movie. Peter Cushing is fabulous as Van Helsing, of course. But what really struck me is I had watched this so recently after the Frankenstein film I had watched the other week. And that's when Peter Cushing was, of course, playing Dr. Frankenstein, and Christopher Lee was playing the Frankenstein's monster. And to see him go from the Dr. Frankenstein role into the Van Helsing role, and he still seemed completely different. I mean, it wasn't like he's a one-size-fits-all. You could just tell how great an actor he is, because I never once in Horror of Dracula thought, oh, that's Peter Cushing's Dr. Frankenstein. I mean, he definitely does completely different take on the character, and I just absolutely loved it. You know it's Peter Cushing, but he's also Van Helsing, and that's a sign of a great actor.
So you're saying, like, unlike the sheet smell that he represents, he's not one size fit all. Like the
that's
linens
right. The linens and lavender that he smells like. So this was really, really good movie. It's basically a retelling, quote unquote, origin story of Dracula, similar to the novel. Sort of like Frankenstein tried to follow somewhat close to the novel. I loved how it, just like the earlier Frankenstein movie, it fleshed out a lot of stuff that you may not see in other portrayals, like the female vampires in this one, which, of course, they're mentioned in the original novel, and you see them in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, you see the female vampires represented, but I don't know that they've ever been as frightening as they are in this movie. 1958, these vampires are still scary. And Christopher Lee's Dracula is still scary. I was really struck by that. I mean, they are really, really creepy. And especially the female vampires, man. They get really... There's some very unsettling scenes in this film that I can imagine in 1958 just blew people away.
Oh, yeah.
Because it even affected me here, sitting here in 2020, and I was like, man, that is really spooky. So I really, really highly recommend Horror of Dracula. 1958 kicks off a run of fantastic vampire movies starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and they are both phenomenal in their roles. Of course, it's an iconic film, a classic film. Definitely go seek this one out. Grab it, rent it, do whatever you have to do to watch this one. Horror of Dracula, 1958. Absolutely loved it.
So, I wish I would have gotten further along on my Amityville project. They did get to the next one, but I would plan to, obviously we had a little bit of a time period, so I was going to try and get another one in, except the next one actually is in the set I ordered from Vinegar Syndrome, which was that Cursed box set. So the next one, The Evil Escapes, is the first movie in that series. So it hasn't shipped yet, so I'm waiting until I get that. Because it seems silly to go rent it when it's actually arriving the next in a row or all in one box set. I think give or take one kind of snuck in between there, but that's fine. I think that one's on Tubi. So I'm gonna wait to that. But I did watch Amityville 3D, which that one has its charm, but a lot of course a lot of people are have made fun of that one because it was in that time period where 3D everything was like, ooh, look, this is gonna come right out at you, or hey, I'm gonna rake these leaves, whoa, kind of thing. And
the greatest thing about Amityville 3D was that iconic box cover art with the claw coming out of the house.
Yeah. But and I have to say, it's like I got to see that one in 3D when Seth and I went to see that triple feature with Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, Amityville 3D, and one of those Paul Naschy films. So that was really cool to see it in 3D because it's something about that time period in the 3D movies. While there's silliness to it, it's still something really fun. And I remember seeing Jaws 3 in 3D too in the theater. So it's like I have a good acumen of getting to see those in there, and that this was I think they the 3D technology they used for that one was this special type of thing that I think I talked about it in that episode. I don't remember all the details now, but yeah, so that was really cool. But yeah, this one was kind of fun. Of course, this one the scariest thing was that was associated though with this film for me, and actually I probably our good buddy Steve Cohn is Tony Roberts, who starred in that. We saw him try and roller skate on Broadway in the version of Xanadu on Broadway. so nothing after seeing that, nothing he does in this is any kind of scariness. But but this one kind of had that cool aspect that where they trying to the whole we're gonna try and debunk the rumor kind of thing going on, and so that it was kind of a cool fun thing. And of course, what also it has a decent horror people in there. It's got that Candy Clark in there too, who's known for a lot of her 80s horror movies. But here's a lot of people also associate this too with Lori Loughlin and Meg Ryan were in this. So you got some big names in there back before they were big names. So that was kind of it's always kind of cool when you stumble across movies like that. But overall, it was fun. It was what it was is what I like to say. It's one that I would I'd watch every so often if it ever came on cable, because it's just one of those fun little cheesy horror films in the franchise. So.
And arguably probably the last of the good Amityville movies.
Yeah. I mean, although I will say that the latest one, the one with Diane Franklin, was good. The Amityville Murders, the one that went after, that kind of went it was more focused on the DeFeos. That one was that was pretty good too. I mean, there was a couple of good ones here or there in there, but yeah, that was the last of the. The first trilogy of horror films. Then when they started just throwing, it was where Amityville was going to just start be putting on titles of everything. And as we went through my preview of this project, there was some weird odd objects and things that they attached Amityville to. I mean, there's that Amityville one that they basically Amity and Amityville they combined for some shark. It was Amityville Shark Attack or something. that's in my not so near future there. So but yeah, you're right. This was the first. This was the last out of the core Amityville movies. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually remember enjoying that one quite a bit the last time I saw it. So this was this next item on our rundown is something I unfortunately did not get a chance to participate in. I'm really bummed that I did not. But Brian had a kind of an impromptu Civil Gore Friday the 13th game with our intern and resident superfan Cody,
Yes.
and our man on the street Steve Cohn, and our good friend Ken.
Yeah, so it was funny. We said it was like the battle between the episodes because as we always joke, Ken likes some short episodes. Cody likes the longer episodes. So it was kind of funny, but we it was all kind of fun. We all just decided to play a couple of rounds. We had a little internet issues. It was glitchy, but we got a bunch of good gaming in there. So Cody got to see firsthand Cone get killed, and as he tends to in this game. But it was fun, and we would definitely want to do that again in the future. Try and get some more. Get some more listener interaction. So if you also want to play, just let us know. Like, send us a message somewhere with your. We do it on Xbox. In Xbox, I know that's available on other systems, but the one we play it on is Xbox currently. So if you have, if you want to play and you have an Xbox ID, let us know, and we can try and set something up. Maybe we'll try and actually pinpoint a future date sometime where we can all, any Civil Gore fan. I mean, obviously you can fit up to 8 in the room, but we can either make 2 rooms. We'll figure it out. Maybe it's not like I don't expect to have 500 responses. But if you want to play too along with us, just let us know. I mean, not even a horror game necessarily. It doesn't have to be a horror game, but we can just send us a DM or an email, and we'll set that up.
All right, next up, this is one I really wanted to see, and again, my schedule's been so crazy with the move. I've been trying to get things back to normal, and where I can sit down and watch these along with Brian. But Shudder was nice enough to send us a screener for Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a fascinating documentary that I can't wait to see about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which was quite controversial at the time. And until I had rewatched this recently, I did not realize that, because I'd watched it, as a younger person, and that went right over my head. But I'm fascinated to hear what you thought about this documentary, Brian.
Yeah, no, this was I'm going to read quickly the summary, the official summary real quick, just for people so they get the idea of what this documentary is. So it's Scream Queen: My Nightmare on Elm Street sets the record straight about the controversial sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which ended Mark Patton's acting career just as it was about to begin. Scream Queens follows Patton as he travels to horror conventions across the U.S., which right there alone is like a fun, those kind of documentaries are good or fun anyway, but there is so much more depth to this. So it continues here. So it says, each new city unwraps a chapter from his life that is met with equal parts joyful and bittersweet detail as he attempts to make peace with his past and embrace his legacy as cinema's first male Scream Queen. Scream Queen also finds Patton confronting Freddy's Revenge, cast and crew for the first time, including co-stars Robert Rusler, Kim Myers, Gulager, as well as Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. It's there's a lot in there, because what happened is basically when they say it destroyed his career, I don't want to go too much into detail because I want you to just to really see it, the emotional impact that this documentary delivers. And we met Mark Patton briefly at New Jersey HorrorCon. He actually had a lot of people at his table all the time, so it was hard to get in, but we met him and Kim Myers briefly. I think they were about to go to dinner. It was like we totally disrupted their whole path, but we said hello and got to talk to him, so we really didn't get to talk to him as much as I like, but at a future convention, I definitely want to make that like priority number one, because I want to talk to him about how great this doc was, and just some of the stuff he had to go through, because basically what had happened is he was that was when Hollywood was really not promoting people being out, and what he went through is just so heartbreaking to see, and how it basically changed his life, But what's good is it's very powerful, because at the end he gets, you see him kind of get to this resolution and get to this place and find what he wants. And it's a really good documentary. I mean, Shudder, I know this is not necessary. I don't know if this is it's a Shudder exclusive now. I don't know if Shudder produced this or not. So I apologize if I get that fact wrong. But I know this has been in works for some time now. And whatever it is, Shudder always manages to provide these such great documentaries on, of course, we love that horror noir one from last year. And this one is just another phenomenal documentary. I suggest everyone watch this. You don't even have to be a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. But it's that fascinating to see. It's that good.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Shudder, for that screener. And
Yes.
then I really want to hear your thoughts on this one, Brian. This is I'll just let you talk about it.
Yeah, wow. This was okay. So first of all, the movie we're talking about is House, and not the William Cat House. This is
Cat House.
the house. Yeah, I know Cat House. The one from 1977. This is from Japan, and they So what happened is Tim had talked about this. I think you talked about this. What?
Yeah.
Maybe like earlier in the year.
Yeah,
I think it was one of our early episodes this year. And, and Tim was just describing it, like as what it is. But so I could never find it because I think you had seen it and it was already off the streaming service.
Yes.
That you had seen it on.
Yes.
So I was like, bummer. And I know there's a Criterion collection of this, but, I didn't want to blindly go in and spend $30 on a movie, that I had never seen, that I really didn't know much about other than what Tim said. So lucky enough, HBO Max came out, and that was actually one of its launch movies, which I thought was an odd choice, but they actually have some really good classic horror movies on there and some current horror. They did really good horror selection. I was very pleased, and I was not going to subscribe to HBO Max. Conan and I had this discussion. We're like, I cannot pay for one more streaming service.
Yeah, enough is enough.
I just can't. But lucky enough, as a Verizon subscriber and HBO subscriber, it comes free. So it was great. So I got that, and that was the first thing I decided to check out on there. I wanted to really check out the Elmo late night talk show, which I still plan to do, but this one I took priority. And wow, this thing was wacky. I mean, it was like it really. I mean, definitely. At first of all, I'm like, why is this considered a horror movie? For the first about half hour of this thing, I couldn't figure out. Then when I saw where it started to go. But like this thing is wild, like just some of the effects it does, and it's like I feel like almost like what people felt like in like one of those drug trips from the 60s, It was like, but I tell you, I really enjoyed it, and it was like, it was so funny because it's just like no. The characters just had the oddest names. What was it, like gorgeous and fancy, like weird, like descriptive names as their names. And I don't even know if I could describe the plot other than that these girls from school all go to visit their aunt, and there's something sinister going on in the house, and it's like kind of a possession-y film, but it like I think everyone needs to see it. If you have HBO Max,
it's indescribable. It is.
Yes, it really is indescribable, but quite enjoyable. So I highly recommend watching it, especially if you have HBO Max and it's no extra charge. But the music is kind of funny in it, and I actually want to watch it again now that I know it. And I actually am I think this is something I'm going to add to the Monolith, because there is a Criterion collection of this, and I would love to see as much information on this as I can.
Plus, this is one of those movies that you would love to be able to just grab off your shelf when a friend comes over and wants to watch something, and you go, "Have you ever seen House from 1977?"
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
Oh, you're
that's
in for
totally
a treat.
One of those. Yeah, that's one of those grab off the shelf.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to see something weird?
Oh yeah. All right, and then I'm really looking forward to your review of this next one, Brian. Brahms, The Boy 2, because I really liked the original Boy, but man, this one got some savage reviews when it came out.
Yeah, so I'm not going to savage review it, but I am going to say that it doesn't, I don't know what I was hoping for as a sequel. I mean, because obviously the way, I'm not, if you haven't seen the first one yet, I'm not going to reveal the big twist in that. But
right.
Based off of, for those people have seen the first one, will kind of know what I'm talking about. The continuation from there went in a different way. And I have to say, really, that was one of its strong points at some level, because I really don't think you could have gone any other way and have it plausible. So they kind of almost do it, even though it's a sequel, they kind of tie in a major backstory element explaining everything. So it kind of it kind of explains prior to the first movie, kind of the events, how it like led up through the first movie almost, and then into the second movie. Now, of course, it stars Katie Holmes, which, I think is just fantastic. So she, I thought, did a great job in it. I mean, it probably wasn't easy to take on this movie that, that almost was going to instantly have kind of daggers thrown at it just because. its premise, but they still had the doll still had the creep factor, so it had some of the positives of the first one. Just I don't think it quite hit. Like I didn't like hate it. Like I wasn't staring at my phone waiting for it to end. I just it just didn't do what the first one did. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But I mean, if you get a chance, if it comes on cable, if it comes on a streaming service, there are worse ways you could spend an hour and a half. So, but one of the definitely positives is it has one of our favorites, Ralph Ineson, in it. So, of course, which we loved in The Witch, and he's in this, and that guy, I'll watch anything he's in. So, but yeah, I mean, it had its moments. I will say it had some cool moments to it too. So, but yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, I saw those reviews. I don't know if I'd be as harsh as they were, but I mean, I'm not going to give it a glowing review either. So I think it was just kind of there.
And then finally up, we had Joe Bob with Mayhem and Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Again, I fell asleep to the second one. I had seen it before, and I was tired. So
yeah, I'm just gonna have to go back and watch these at some other time. I just cannot stay up that late on Friday nights. I'm usually exhausted from the work week.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Joe Bob, I just have to catch those on reruns.
Yeah, the Mayhem though was fantastic. I love that movie. That's Joe Lynch's movie. Kind of very, and it's funny. I saw a thing going on Twitter, as I was going to say, because first comparison everyone's going to compare it to is very similar to kind of like a Belko experiment type of deal, because it's a lot of violence in an office place. Mm-hmm. But the movie also centers around this virus, so it was very timely at the same time. So I don't know when Joe Bob picks these, but I don't know if he was just super prophetic or just was an unhappy coincidence. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so this one was good. But Samara Weaving, once again, I'm telling you, she's becoming like horror elite in my eyes, because she was like, and Stephen Yeun, of course, was in this too. So he does an amazing job in horror stuff. But Samara Weaving, I can't say good enough things. She's starting to get her own niche of stuff. She's starting to get that Samara, almost like Nick Cage has his things, of course, we've said. Samara Weaving in horror movies is kind of having that thing. She's got like this badass quality in those facial expressions she does, and it's like it's one of those things where I will welcome it in any movie. So once again, she knocked it out of the park in this one. She just had a couple of scenes, and it's like, man. But I loved Mayhem, so definitely watch that one. And what's great, Shudder did, they put 2 versions on their site. Supposedly, one you can get the regular version of the movie, and the other one is the one with the commentary. Of Joe Lynch, and Joe Bob was poking fun at it because he was just tearing this commentary apart, because I guess at one point they went so into bowel movements instead of what the movie was happening on screen. So Joe Bob, of course, was giving him a hard time about that. And Joe Bob in his classic thing was like, "How do you have a sex scene and keep your clothes on? Unexcusable." Typical Joe Bob. I don't work on my Joe Bob impersonation because nobody can do it like Joe Bob. So, but yeah, so he was funny with that, just poking fun, and he was they were kind of poking fun at each other on Twitter. So it was good.
Cool. I'll check that one out. All right, so let's get to our fantastic interview with Miss Lauren Marie Taylor. She was, if the whole story of this interview ever comes out,
yeah, I think we'll have to at some point.
At some point, we'll tell you the whole circumstances around this interview. You would think this was even more amazing, but we're going to actually break this interview into 2 parts. What you're going to hear tonight is part 1, which is about a half hour. And it was fantastic. And then next week we're going to have part 2, and we'll kind of set that one up when we get to that show, because we had another guest arrive for that piece of it, and Lauren Marie actually decided to come back on and tell us a couple of other stories that she did not get a chance to tell on the first night that we recorded, which was just amazing. So you guys are going to be in for a really big treat with this interview.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for you to hear it. I can't wait to hear the feedback from the fans after they hear this.
Yes.
So without further ado, Brian, here's our interview with Lauren Marie Taylor.
So Tim and I have always stated that Friday the 13th has been one of our favorite horror franchises. So we can't express just how excited we are to introduce tonight's guest. You all know her as Vickie, one of the unfortunate participants in the Packanack Counselor Training Program nearby Crystal Lake. So please welcome to Civil Gore, Lauren Marie Taylor.
Hi, everybody. Hi, thank you for having me. It was so exciting to get messaged by you guys on social media and to have this invitation. It's just great, especially right now when we're not seeing any new people. It's just so nice to be able to meet new people and have conversations with people other than the people that live in our house, the dogs and the cats, and myself.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I mean, because this is like, you're the Friday the 13th royalty here. This is awesome for us.
It's a big deal. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm blushing.
Well, first we want to make sure you and your family are staying safe during quarantine, and just want to know how you've been keeping busy.
Well, I hope you guys are staying safe too. Obviously, north and south, I've been keeping busy. I started quarantine working on a needlepoint, which I quickly abandoned to start baking. And then I abandoned that to eating grilled cheese. And then I abandoned that for a little while and rode my motorcycle. And then most recently, I was watching my cats chase and eat chipmunks. So we've got kind of like a pet cemetery thing going on here.
Oh.
Yeah.
One franchise.
Oh, yes, it's a great franchise in this house. And then when I go to get the cats and shake the chipmunks out of them, I wound up getting into some poison ivy, which is all over my arm.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a problem that Jason didn't have because he was smart enough when he was stalking in the woods and going through poison ivy. He had long sleeves and overalls. So the dude, his face looked like poison ivy under the sack, but he never got poison ivy. So that's what I've been doing.
That's true. He did always wear like full arm sleeves. That's smart. People thought he was like this mindless killer, but he legit knew how to handle himself out in nature, I guess.
Yeah. No bug bites, no poison ivy, no nothing.
Yeah. That's crazy. Now that I'm looking at Friday the 13th a whole different way now. I'm looking at Jason as like this leader of how to survive in the woods, even though he kills everybody else, but he survives. So
yeah, he could have been Paul. He could have been the head counselor. Come on.
Exactly. So before we get into specifics of Friday the 13th, which I know everyone wants to learn about, so why don't you tell your listeners now? See, your listeners too now.
You've already taken them over.
Yes, you're gonna win everybody over so fast that they're gonna forget who Tim and I are. But no, so why don't you tell our listeners how your career started and your origin story, so to speak.
Oh, okay. Well, I was a pod, and I grew into a flower, which is what they told us in Catholic school. But seriously, I was doing a musical in the all-boys high school next door to my high school. And another actress who did very well for herself, Ali Sheedy from War Games.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Breakfast Club. Yeah. She was in it also. And she was the romantic lead. And I, of course, was the funny girl, as usual, the second girl, always the second girl. And her manager came to see the production of Oklahoma that we were in and came up to me afterwards and said, "How would you like to be on TV?" And I was like, okay, right. She said, "No, really, you have a really good face for TV commercials. You have a very likable, all-American face." So I said, okay, whatever, and met with them and went out for a few auditions. And then all of a sudden I was doing all the Burger King commercials. Can I say Burger King or should I just say
I think so. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Well, I was doing all the fast food chain commercials for this one fast food chain for 3 years. And I sang all their jingles also. And then after that, the same manager said, "You know what, we're going to put you in get you in a movie for background work so that you could see how the filmmaking industry works, what a typical day is like." And I was like, okay. So they send your picture in and whatnot. And I got picked by Woody Allen to be featured background in the movie Manhattan. And if you watch it, you can see me in that. And it was really a great experience to work with Woody Allen because he's very hands-on with everybody. And we were watching the movie recently. It was on cable. And I said to my kids who were around, because, it's COVID-19 and everybody's around, I said, I recorded it. I said, "Find me in this scene." And they kept picking the wrong person.
Oh my
They're
God.
like, "Oh, you're that blonde. Oh, you're that other one." I was like, "No, I'm that one right there with the brown hair." So
it could have been worse. They could have picked Woody Allen. I mean,
yeah, really. Back then, maybe. So that was that. And then I auditioned for Friday the 13th, got the part, and the rest is history.
Wow.
That's awesome. So were you a fan of horror movies before getting the role?
Okay, so my favorite horror movie growing up, and this is going to totally date me. I guess if I date myself, that's kind of awkward, but it's totally dating me. I loved the movie The Blob. I remember seeing it, not in the movie theater, it was on TV, and the blob would come through the vents of the film, the projection thing, whatever it's called, the projection room, and it would eat everybody. So that was my first big horror movie. And I was just scared of movie theaters from then on in. And then there was Jaws, which made me scared to get into the water. And then, of course, there's the all-time best, which is The Shining.
Yes.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Number one favorite.
So yeah, I was definitely into horror movies, but it was different. They changed throughout the years. But I had never seen a Friday the 13th movie. Well, there was only one before us, but I hadn't seen it before being cast in it.
Wow. So when you got it though, were you like, what is this Friday the 13th you speak of?
Oh, absolutely. Because I hadn't seen it. I thought, oh, part 2, is there a part 1? I didn't know that. So after we all got cast in the movie, the producers and Steve Miner, of course, the director, had us go to a screening room in New York City, and we had to watch the movie, part 1. And back then, nobody knew who Kevin Bacon was or anything like that. I didn't know who Kevin Bacon was yet. So all those people in this movie are legit being stabbed and killed and chased, and it's dark and it's scary and they're screaming and everything. The blood looks so real. And I sat there and I went, is this a snuff movie? Are we all really going to get killed while we're filming this? And I called up my manager. I was like, do they really kill you? She said, what are you talking about? So that was my entree into the Friday the 13th franchise.
That's so cool. So so Vickie has been always, and I think Tim has agreed too, Vickie has been one of our favorite characters because you were so extremely likable, and I think which I always say it's like a lot of like the main cast of a slasher film are expendable, and they're all like either like some kind of like standard horror trope, with the exception of like the so-called final girl. But you stood out, I thought. But you were just so like such a likable, nice character, and I know the consensus around the horror community seems to agree with that too. So, what do you think that you added to the role that led to that?
Well, she's a reliable kind of girl. She's reliable, she's relatable. I think she would have made a great camp counselor. But when I approached Vickie, because there's nothing in the script that says Vickie is a girl who blah, 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 blah. So when I approached the character of Vickie, I thought, well, I've got to give her a backstory. So the backstory that I gave her was she was always second place. She wasn't the hot girl. She wasn't the prom queen. She wasn't the cheerleader who got all the jocks. She was always the best friend who tagged along with everybody. And that probably gave her some insecurity with playing that role throughout her life, mostly her teenage life. So that when she went after Mark in the wheelchair, he was also somebody who was kind of, because of his motorcycle accident and being in the wheelchair, he was also somebody who probably didn't get the girl, just like she never got the guy. So I approached the character in that way in order to make her more real and more accessible, to the girls like me out there who, we all have backstories and insecurities. And however they manifest themselves and however we choose to approach life because of your backstory makes us relatable to the audience.
But you say that it's second place, but to us, you're first place. I could say that. So.
I'm blushing again.
So I know you have some cool stories from the making of the film. So I'd love to hear if you have any funny tales or stories about the making of. I know our listeners would love it as well.
Okay, well, before I tell you a story, I rewatched the movie before coming on with you guys, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's been what? I don't know. I don't want to say how many years, but a few decades. Is it? I don't want to say centuries.
I think it's a handful of years. That's all.
It's a handful. It's not that much. Okay. But if you watch the very beginning of the movie, right, there's a scene where a little girl is singing Itsy Bitsy Spider, right? And she's pushing her feet through the water, going, itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. And if you look at her feet, it's like a men's size 10. So I don't know if you guys noticed that, but if you go back and watch it, see if you can see that. And you'll be like, wait a minute, that's not a 5-year-old's foot. That's an adult's foot. And you never see the child's face. So that's one of those funny things that I observed. And it's not really my background story. It's just my, wow, I never noticed that. Like, what?
I have to see that because I just rewatched it too, and I'm like now I'm gonna rewatch it again, even though that's one of my favorites anyway. So I do rewatch that one from time to time. So I'm definitely gonna have a couple of things to look for sure.
Yeah, you definitely have to do that. And the other thing is there's a line that John Fury, who plays Paul, and it's Stu Charno, who plays Ted, talks about Paul, and he says, oh, he's a real, kind of, macho kind of guy. And when you look at the character of Paul, he looks like a country club boy. Like he should be out playing putt-putt golf over at Camp Crystal Lake, somewhere, on the grass. He doesn't look like a macho kind of guy. So I thought that was kind of funny that they added that. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Did you think that he was kind of macho, or did you think that he was, he looks like he's been to too many Connecticut country clubs?
I see that Connecticut country club vibe there a little bit. Yeah, he's got that going. I mean, but he seemed like a cool dude though. At least, he didn't seem too bad. He seemed like you could hang out with him.
Guy. Yeah, John Fury's a great guy, and also his character was definitely a good guy. And then Manfredini's score in the scene where we're running. Actually, I was not in that scene. I was filming a commercial that day, and I couldn't get to the set, so I was cut out of that scene because I was filming a commercial. But there's a scene towards the beginning of the movie where they're running, right? And you hear the thing of Jason watching them. Listen to the strings in that music, and it sounds like our favorite movie, The Shining.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has that weird thing that happens. Yeah.
Okay, look at that.
Oh, I gotta check that out. Yeah, speaking of Shining, I have a Shining actually face covering on order that's on its way. I think it's basically just I wanted to go subtle horror, and so it's literally just the carpet. Pattern.
Yeah.
So it looks cool. So I'm eagerly anticipating that, because right now I have this one that I had a fake one rigged up out of this old New York Mets thing that I had, and then I had this other one which was it actually came with the Hulk Hogan video game for Xbox. It was a bandana that I just sat somewhere in a box. I found that, so I made that into a mask, and then I have this one that my mom sent us over for me and my wife. They're matching ones that almost looks like the little Amazon smile. So it's I guess, so if you can't smile, you have that.
So that's another way Jason was ahead of his time. He just did the whole face sackcloth thing.
Yeah, the sack head, it actually made him look like a scarecrow. I kind of want a Jason cutout for my backyard.
Well, they have, I've seen those full standee ones that I would love to get that and just scare someone out of that. But
yeah, well, they were crazy on that set. When we first got there, somehow everybody got the word that I was a New York City girl, and I had never been out of New York City, never been out of the Bronx or Brooklyn. They all got wind of it, and we stayed at the actual sleepaway camp where we were filming. So we didn't stay in the franchise Holiday Inn type of places. We stayed in the cabins. Okay, no heating, no air conditioning, barely mosquito netting on the windows. And I was in my room putting my clothes away, and I had clothes because I thought, oh, I'm going to go out. I never went out. Nobody ever went out. We were there the whole time. I had dresses to look pretty, and we never did it. So I'm there putting my clothes away, and all of a sudden I hear in the window, and I just went, flat out. And the next thing I remember was, Lauren, are you okay? Are you okay? I totally passed out. I thought I would, again, like I thought when I saw Friday the 13th Part 1, I thought they're really going to kill us, and this is my death scene.
Oh, no.
Passed right out. So they did that. Russell Todd, Tom McBride, and Stu Charno did that to me. Yeah.
That's some tough initiation there.
It was hard. And there was another time where we were all supposed to go swimming at the lake, and you see the scene. Amy Steele is in the lifeguard chair. Stu Charno is hanging around, and then I'm pushing Tom McBride in the wheelchair, promising him that I won't fall over and throw him face forward into the sand. And Steve Meyer wanted me to leave him and go swimming in the lake. And I said, I can't swim. And he goes, yeah, Lauren, you just don't want to get wet in the cold lake. I said, no, I can't swim. And that's the only reason why Vickie is there for the little joke session with Stu Charno and Amy Steele and Tom McBride. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you hear your New York accent just a little bit in that scene though, with the where you say your face. I caught that,
How dare you? How dare you remember that? But that was an ad lib.
Oh, see? Well, it's the New York connection. I can't help it. I hear a New York accent. I gravitate to it. I can't help it,
Well, see, talking to you, I'm going to start talking like that again.
Uh-oh. Well, poor Tim. Tim can't handle two of us.
Sorry, Tim.
I'm not even going to attempt to do that.
You're not from the South Bronx. You're just from the South.
I'm just from the South.
Tim and his dulcet tones are no match for two New York accents, I'll tell you.
No.
So here's kind of a fun question, I think. I mean, even though you told us some cool, fun set stories, but here's a really fun question. If history is altered and the Vickie character survived, what do you think she would have done after the events of part 2?
Okay, Vickie being Vickie would have gone back to the bar to tell everybody what was going on at the camp. And I don't know why they never came back to the camp anyway. They just stayed at the bar, probably under the tables, because they never did come back to the camp in the movie.
That is true.
So Vickie would have done that. She definitely would have gone back to the bar. Now, if it's Lauren rewriting Vickie, Vickie would have been all jacked up like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. I would have been there with all guns blazing, gone back and go, you killed all my friends, bitch! And just shot through his sack head. Right through the sack head. He's gone.
Mike, I think we're getting some good Vickie fan fiction here, Tim. This sounds,
I would give anything to see this movie.
Yes. Yeah, if Tim and I had any talent, we would totally hire you to film this.
Dream like that in a second.
Yeah.
Vickie's revenge.
Maybe Tim could just write it up. Tim can write well. Maybe he'll just write us up a fan fiction for you.
Yeah. Vickie the vivacious vixen.
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Vickie,
Tim. Look at that! How that's method acting, method interview.
Yes,
you're so good in the role. You are the character.
Mark.
Oh, you got cool, Mark.
I might have to leave that in there. So I'm sorry. So Lauren, the horror community is a fantastic bunch. Me and Brian have loved the conventions and stuff we've been to. Have you done any conventions, and how have your interactions with the fans and stuff been?
Well, I will say, I've done a few conventions. I don't really do a whole lot, maybe one a year. I think I can count, Katie, on one hand, how many conventions I've done. I'm talking to my daughter, Katie, she's sitting there. I think I can count on maybe one hand how many conventions I've done. I got into it, more recently, and it's been great. I was supposed to go to a convention on March 13th for the whole weekend, and that's the weekend everything started shutting down. Coronavirus, yeah. But I love going to the conventions, though, the ones that I've been to. The fans are great. You gotta love the fans. They come with the memorabilia, the posters, the movie cards. It's just, things that I haven't seen for years. And they're just great. They just know every line from the movie, and there's a multitude of fans. It's not just my Friday the 13th fans. I also have the Neighbors fans and the Girls Night Out fans, the other horror movie that I did that I met my husband on, and they're just great. And just the people dressing up in character. I know there are two girls that dress up like the twins in The Shining.
Oh, I think I've seen them.
Yes. Yeah, they go around and they're great. And I take pictures with everybody. Because I like to, during my lunch break, I don't go to my room. I like to walk around and go to the vendors and buy stuff and see what other people are doing. And at one of the conventions, I met Brooke Smith, who played Catherine Martin in Silence of the Lambs.
Ah.
And we took a picture together. That's another go-to movie. Horror slash, maybe horror, maybe thriller. And that's another go-to movie for me. And when I met her, all I could think was, it puts the lotion in the basket. Yeah, so that's just one of the great things about conventions is meeting the fans, meeting the friends of all the things that you've been in, and then just meeting the other people who have worked in the same genre. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I definitely hope that these conventions come back in some way. I know a lot are slated to kind of make their way back in September, like the one we went to last year that we've just loved, and any listener will tell you like that we literally do not stop talking about it. It was the New Jersey Horror Con, and
yes,
and that one's so great because that one just it's more of an intimate convention than some that I've been to, and it's like you get really like up close and personal with all the different guests there and the vendors, and it really is like a family. Like they had like a karaoke afterwards, and
wow.
Ari Lehman, of course, who played the original Jay-Z, his band was there last time, and they, oh my god, and he's some musician. So
I
he
feel
was
like
cool.
That's how Bay of Blood was in Tampa Bay. Bay of Blood was a little bit smaller, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping you get to come back to the convention circuit because Tim and I will make it a point to come there, and I promise I'll have him learn your name by that point, so he doesn't.
Right, and then I can scream at you guys. Okay?
Yeah.
Scream at you guys.
That'd be
It's
awesome.
funny. Speaking of screaming, I forgot to mention one of the behind the scenes thing. A couple of things actually. One was they loved my screams so much that I started dubbing in screams for other horror movies. And I dubbed a scream for one of the actresses on our movie too. And my kids actually noticed it because they said, "Mom, that's your scream." I was like, "Yeah, but I can't tell you about that." And the other thing is in my murder scene, if you will, maybe I didn't die. I don't know.
Yes, we don't know that yet.
No, we don't know that. Maybe, I'm coming back guns a-blazing. I had to bite into the capsule that had the blood in it and it wouldn't break. So I kept having to do that scream over and over and over again. And Steve Miner was like, break the capsule. And I'm like, I'm trying. And then finally, I just positioned it and sucked on the gelatin long enough so that it would break, when they come really close in my face because they wanted it to break at a certain time. And I was like, like that. I had to go from that big scream to biting it. So that was kind of like, give me a grilled cheese, I can bite through it. But this,
Well, that's it, Tim. We know now when we do go to the convention and we meet Lauren, we're going to have to bring her like a gourmet grilled cheese, I think.
Yes, something fancy.
Oh, yes. National Cheese Day is the first week of June. And that's all I'm saying. I'm just going to get tons of cheese.
Yeah. So before we let you go, where can our listeners follow you and all our other fans follow you on social media? Because I know now once they hear you, they're going to be like, okay, she's the best. I need to follow her. I got to see all her pictures and whatnot. So. And
my stuff, yeah. I'm not a big social media person. My daughter can attest to that. She's sitting right here, right, Katie?
You're a little, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big social media. I'm horrible social media. But I am on Instagram, and it's Lauren Marie Taylor 1 on Instagram, and that's where you can find me. Yeah.
See, we told you. You said second place, but you have the Lauren Marie Taylor 1. See?
There's a 1 there. Because I was always number 2, so I put number 1. Yeah.
Well, see, that works. And you have some great stuff in there. And look, Tim's daughter and son made an appearance too.
Oh yeah, I'll say hi. Go say hi if they're shy. They're being shy.
Yeah, they're into horror though.
I can see them around the corner.
My son is physically crawling under the camera, like it's like an army crawl.
That's so funny. And we took them to Halloween Horror Nights, and so Tim won Father of the Year by putting them into the scariest house first, which was kind of funny.
Yes.
Listen, when you're little, it's crazy like that. I grew up across the street from a cemetery. So when I was a kid, I watched the TV series Scooby-Dooby-Doo all the time because I was obsessed with ghosts and hauntings. And I thought, oh, Scooby-Doo, he's going to... Yeah. Cemetery, yeah.
Yeah, so it's... Oh, look, there he is. There's Joshua.
There he is. Hi! You say hi?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
You want to hear me scream?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like in a horror movie?
He's got a great screen.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Close your ears. Ready?
I think he broke Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom,
Like,
Zoom
like-
just like hit the cat.
Yeah, like it like hit the threshold of scream. That was funny.
And one of my dogs actually finally came over when he
Oh,
heard
no.
that. She screamed a couple of times. Let me go over there and save her.
We're just disrupting your whole household. But yeah, so and you have great so you guys should definitely follow Lauren if you haven't looked. She's got some really cool stuff. Like today you just posted had a really cool like some pictures from the convention. I saw you with like little like Jason thing.
Yeah,
some
it's
cool
fun.
stuff. And then you had I saw the funny video you had of the like I guess you were trying to get pizza on National Pizza Day or something or
Yes,
that was
and they
pretty
were
funny.
closed.
I know.
Mhm. Yeah, well, the doors were closed and I had to do curbside pickup, and I was just so distraught because I like to scroll through with my eyes all the different types of pizza they have and then just kind of drool until I get to the counter to pay for them. And I was so disappointed. My salivary glands were just like, where's the pizza?
It was such a funny video. Tim, if you haven't seen that, you got to watch that one.
I'm gonna check that out. Yeah,
'Cause,
That's
she
good.
waves her like her face covering and like I've got it. Let me in. It was funny.
Thanks.
We'll keep that in the Vickie fan fiction. We'll have that as the
yeah.
opening scene. You'll be at the Crystal Lake Pizzeria going, "God, let me in," but you know.
So I do have a funny story. Our neighbor down the street is a huge horror fan. Her favorite franchise is Halloween.
Yeah.
She does like the series though. So I mentioned to her tonight because she had texted my wife, and I said, and by the way, I'm interviewing Lauren Marie Taylor tonight from Friday the 13th, Part 2. And she was like, "Oh my God, I need to come over and sit in on the Zoom session." I was like, "No. This is
Oh,
already been
you should have.
I was like, no, we're good." But she was super, super excited. So I'll let you know we had another fan down the street that was like,
Oh,
real.
thanks. Yeah, you should have invited her over. It would have been funny. The more the
Yeah.
merrier, right?
Well, we're always toying with the idea of doing like a Civil Gore Zoom where like all our listeners can come on and stuff. So maybe we'll have to have you come back on during that. That'll be as a surprise or something. That'll be kind of cool.
That would be fun to crash your party. I would love to
Yeah.
crash your party.
Oh, that would be awesome.
cool.
You'd probably make so many people's days. It would be no big. And I told our friend Steve Cohn, who comes on, he's the one we play the Friday the 13th video game with, which I know we don't have time to get into because we'll be here forever. But
Oh yeah, the yellow car and all that.
yes, but your yellow car is in there. And but and he, when I told him, he's like, "Oh wow, that's so cool." So a lot of people got excited by this. So we cannot thank you enough because I know it's like it's a crazy time, and the fact that you made some time for us, it really makes us feel like extra special. So
Thank you for inviting
so much.
me. This has been
Yeah.
so much fun, and I really can't wait to meet you guys in person. Thank you so much for having me, and just mwah to you guys, and mwah to the fans.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that because as much as we did recording it, and just it was like, you know what? I mean, I know we say this so often, but this one was just off the charts amazing, this interview, and she was so incredibly fun to talk to. I mean, I feel like we've like actually not just made a friend of the show, but like a friend in general for this, because we, like I said, we'll eventually get through the entire story of the way this interview, the whole saga of the story of this interview. But just talking to her, I mean, because there's a lot that probably didn't even make it into the editing because there was just because we talked for a long time, but that sometimes obviously it wasn't an interview form, we just went on. She is just one of the most genuine, nice, funny, smart, just enthusiastic people you will ever meet.
Yeah, there's certain people that you meet that you feel like you've just kind of known forever. They're that welcoming and approachable and friendly and that kind of thing. And she's just one of those people that just completely puts you at ease immediately. And that was really fantastic. So thank you again, Lauren Marie, for that incredible interview. And we'll have another fabulous second half of this interview coming up next week. So, Brian, it is time for our main feature. This one's kind of funny to me because we didn't really know what movie we were going to do. At one point, we were going to do The Lodge, and then Kim and Kat ended up doing that one. We didn't want to do the same movie in the same week that they were doing it. So we were just kind of scrambling. And I saw this one pop up on Shudder, and I just had to laugh because I have not seen this movie in so long. And it was actually one filmed near me. And this was I Know What You Did Last Summer from 1997. I just thought it might be fun to go back to the 90s this week.
Yeah. I mean, and this one, it's even though it is a trilogy, this was not something I don't think we ever had earmarked for a summer's vacation or anything.
No.
And it's a movie that I felt like we probably should have done by now then.
Yes. Because it is a bit of a classic in a way. I mean, it's one of, when you say the title of the movie, everybody knows what you're talking about. You know, this is not a movie that people have not heard of. It's a kind of a common phrase thing. So and it, following in the wake of Scream, it kind of cemented. You know, Scream started the whole trend of the rebirth of the slasher and the teen horror thing that happened throughout the early or late 90s and early 2000s. I think this kind of cemented it because it was another Kevin Williamson script. It's actually one he wrote, we'll find out in the trivia, he wrote before Scream.
Right. This was actually, should have been out before it.
Yeah, so. He couldn't get greenlit until after the success of Scream. So, but I thought he was kind of charming in a way because it has all these great 90s stars at the peak of their power. You know, it was just so neat to see them back in the day. So let's run through the cast list real quick. Of course, it was directed by Jim Gillespie. And stars Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julie James, and she was filming Party of Five at this time, so she was incredibly popular at this point. Yeah,
she was that. This was like almost like a stunt casting, but that was like perfect stunt casting.
Yes.
And you'll find out. Actually, it's funny with the main two stars of this, the little flip flop. You'll find out in the trivia later. But
Sarah Michelle Gellar plays Helen Shivers, and Sarah Michelle Gellar had just started Buffy at the time this came out, so she was super popular. Ryan Phillippe as Barry Cox, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Ray Bronson, Muse Watson as Benjamin Wills / Fisherman. Oops, spoiler alert. Bridget Wilson Sampras as Elsa Shivers, Anne Hesh as Melissa Egan, and who I'd forgotten that Anne Hesh was in there. And Johnny Galecki as Max, who I'd also forgotten was in here because I didn't know who Johnny Galecki was other than obviously.
From Roseanne, he was on at this. I think he was on Roseanne by this point, right? It had to
was
been,
he?
Yeah,
that would have been around the same time, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they were. I assume Roseanne was still on at that point, but either way, that's what he was known for back then.
Yeah. So the synopsis is: 4 young friends bound by a tragic accident are reunited when they find themselves being stalked by a hook-wielding maniac in their small seaside town. So this movie I remember very clearly because this was filmed in Southport. Southport is a small little coastal town. It's hard for me to say the distance-wise because you never get there by driving. And what I mean
can't get there from here. Sorry.
What I mean by that is the most popular way to get to Southport is by ferry from Wilmington. So it's 31 miles from here. So it's about 40 minutes. But the best way to get to it is you go down to the beach and you hop on this ferry that runs over to Southport. And that was like a common thing to do, especially in the summertime when we were kids, is Mom would get us in the car. We'd, hey, who wants to go to Southport? Oh, yeah, we do, because we would get on the ferry and feed the seagulls from the back of the ferry. It was a whole big thing. It was a whole day trip to go to Southport. And Southport's a neat little town in that they've kept the... much like you see in the movie, they've kind of tried to keep that quaintness about it. And so it's filled with all these little shops and little antique stores and little craft stores. And they have a craft festival every year. And it's just kind of a nice little quaint little seaside town. There was some kind of romantic... No, I don't know if it's a romantic comedy. There's some romance movie I saw that was filmed in Southport and took place in Southport recently. And kind of the same thing. It just has that little small, quaint southern town feel to it. So it's very popular for movie settings, I guess. So I remember when this was filmed because there were people I knew that were extras in some of the crowd scenes, like the parade scenes, that talked about filming it. And it was a big deal down here at the time when they filmed it because everybody knew this was a big horror movie and you're coming off of Scream. And nowadays, I guess we're just Horror Movie Central because Scream 5 is being filmed here this fall.
And Halloween's.
And Halloween Kills, yeah. I remember this movie being a pretty big deal even before it came out around here, just because we knew that it was filming. And there are some notable scenes in here that are not filmed in Southport. You have the obviously the opening where they hit the man in the road. That's on like a cliffside, curvy, mountainous terrain that you can't find anywhere in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So that was obviously not here. But the scene where like the store that she's in, that Antiques or Shivers Antiques or whatever it was.
Isn't it like the same store or something?
Yeah, I've been in that store and I've seen it. It looks exactly the same from the outside.
They clean the blood up though, right?
Yeah, they clean all that up.
Good.
But yeah, so it's neat. You get to see all this stuff. Like what you see in the movie is really what it was like back then. I haven't been to Southport, God knows when. It's been years since I've actually been to Southport, so it may have changed.
Well, I hope the town was okay through. I mean, with the whole COVID stuff, you wonder like if you lost any of the small stores or.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I haven't been there in so long, and they stopped the ferry runs over there when the COVID stuff broke out.
Right.
I'm gonna have to make it a point to go back there when this kind of simmers down because I'd like to see it again. It's just a neat little town. But yeah, so this one, of course, the kind of a familiar story now. I don't know if it was a familiar story then, but these kids are driving. They hit a person in the road. They decide to dump the body, which may or may not have still been alive at the end. And then 1 year later, you see the after effects of this traumatic event that happened. And now we start seeing that somebody knows what they did last summer. Yes. And that kicks off the rest of the movie. And one thing I really liked about this movie is that the characters had actual repercussions for their actions. So Jennifer Love Hewitt in particular was extremely went way downhill after this. I mean, she looks like crap. She's depressed. I mean, her mom even thinks she's on drugs, possibly, because she feels guilty about about having hit this guy.
Well, and she was always from the start, I think, because she almost she's like that. She was the one that's saying, no, we need to call the cops. She was always on trying to do the right thing from the second it happened and was basically talked out and kind of bullied out of it, really. Not even talked out, but threatened out.
And I think it's worth mentioning due to the trivia that Sarah Michelle Gellar actually auditioned for Jennifer Love Hewitt's part and vice versa. Yeah. And they ended up getting the roles swapped. But I think that's the right call because Jennifer Love Hewitt had that girl next door vibe to her. Yeah. And Sarah Michelle Gellar definitely has the more prom queen cheerleader vibe to her. So, I mean, it just made perfect sense casting wise that they switch.
Yeah, and because remember, and also if you think about her role on Party of Five was like that, the girl next door, so I think
her role in every movie was like that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, later on in her career, she got different kind of roles, but back then she was, it was always that even in Can't Hardly Wait, she was the popular girl, but she was also the one with the heart, she was kind of she. Yeah, maybe she went in, she dated the jock, but you saw right off the bat that she was what? I'm over this kind of stuff. This might have been good for a year in high school to be, but at the same time, she's got, heart. She's got a good soul. So she, I think definitely the whoever made that swap was very good at their job because it was the perfect switch, I think.
Yeah, and I guess we should talk a little bit about what happened to the characters. So of course we talked about Jennifer Love Hewitt as Julie. She kind of basically spirals into a depression after this. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was like the beauty queen, and she had all these dreams of going to New York and all this lofty high hopes that she had, kind of got shattered. So she's returned back to town. Her dreams never really panned out. Freddie Prinze Jr., I think, is working on a fishing boat. Isn't he the one that was working on the fishing boat?
Yeah, he was. Him and Johnny Galecki's character.
Yeah.
Even though Johnny Galecki's character wasn't the core four, but he was kind of like he was like a fifth at some level because, I think he was more friends with Jennifer Love Hewitt, and he, he kind of drove by, and so he kind of got implicated just at bad timing.
Right,
because
yes.
Ryan Phillippe's character thought, he assumed it had to be him. So.
I can't remember what happened to Ryan Phillippe's character, like what his circumstance was.
Well, he was like that rich, preppy kind of guy anyway.
Yeah.
And he was just an a-hole. I said, he may be the number one character in a horror movie that doesn't die soon enough.
I know.
Because he's so unlikable in this. Even in his one moment where he's supposed to have this semi-redeeming moment, it's like, by that point, I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, no, he deserves it. He's such a, he's not nice to anybody. And it's like, especially like right in the beginning, it is literally the entire event of the movie are all his fault. All of it.
Yes,
if you think
it
about
really
it.
is.
It is all his fault. And he's one of these people that first the initial, well, you can't drive. Nobody drives my car. And then he blames Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character. And what did he do wrong? The guy's he blames him. He's driving, and Ryan Phillip, I wish we could get his real name, Barry, literally spills a whole bottle of alcohol over him and causes him to swerve off the road into somebody. Yet the first instinct is, you don't know how to drive. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Dude,
he's a really bad character. I will say, though, all of the other characters in this movie are actually very likable.
They are.
Even Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, which is kind of could have been played as the really stuck up preppy girl, model, blah blah blah. She doesn't play it that way. I mean, and I'm not saying that it was written that way in the script for her to be that way, but it could have. You could imagine in your mind a version of this movie that was not written by Kevin Williamson, maybe written by a lesser screenwriter, in which that character was that two-dimensional. But no,
that's a good point. Yeah,
but no, in this movie, she's actually you really feel some sympathy for her throughout the movie, and she makes a potential final girl.
She kind of like she turns, and actually it's funny, a lot of people say like her chase is like one of the the top horror scene chases, because it goes for a decent length for a horror movie chase, and her and then she's and she does, you're right, she does play that character. It was a great point to make, because most horror movies would have had her as the snotty girl and never really believing what's going on. She probably would have maybe even died sooner. And who knows, maybe that's why her death was kind of extended to not dying, for till later than you would expect in the movie, actually. So,
and I must say that a lot of that sympathy comes from her sister, played by Bridget Wilson Sampras, who plays Elsa. Her sister really is that person. She is the stuck-up snob and looks down on Helen, and kind of the classic big sister who bullies her younger sister. Essentially, she kind of is that role.
Yeah, and she has that obliviousness, literally, if you're standing in the store late at night and you see your younger sister come screaming and smacking on the glass door, you really just fumble with the keys and slowly walk over.
That
not
drove
even looking
me crazy.
Yeah, no sense of urgency, and I'm like, oh my God. I said, I don't care, if you you think your little sister is threw her life away. She's literally screaming, and even if you if it was a fake out, just that a normal reaction would be to either run over fast just to de-escalate whatever's going on there. Like either, hey, all right, knock it off. You're gonna break the window. Stop fooling around. Or hey, get in here. Oh my God, you're in danger, kind of thing. But there was no reaction other than like
it was like the most
I gotta
extreme.
let her in. Yeah,
It's like the most extreme dysfunction between sisters that you could possibly have, to the
Yeah.
point where she's like basically risking her younger sister's life by
yeah.
just dismissing her screams of terror as a joke. Like, I mean, just
Yeah, and that's not a knock on her, Bridget Wilson Sampras' performance. I think that was like perfectly acted because that was her character, and she did an amazing job actually in it. And she doesn't get, I don't know if how much credit she really gets for that role, but it's not a big role, but it's done really well. She does a really good job in that role.
yeah, she really does. It's interesting, this movie too. When I was watching it back, is the fairly low body count. I think there's only 6 deaths in this movie, and the first death, which is Johnny Galecki's character Max, doesn't happen until around I looked at the timestamp. It was around the 40-minute mark, 45-minute mark before you get the first kill in what you kind of remember as a slasher film. You're like, man, we're like halfway through the movie before anybody really dies. And
Yeah, and what's funny too is it's like if you think about it, it's not even like a like there's a lot of like fake out deaths, like where you think there's going to be a death and there's not. So it's like, but then again, that fits the whole movie because that's where it kind of bucks the trend of a little slasher because there's this cat and mouse game of like they're really like the guy who's threatening them is playing with them. He knows he's playing on their guilt, he's playing on their fears, and he's just being antagonizing them until he can.
Well, I think that's where you get the Kevin Williamson influence, where it's just smarter than a normal slasher, in which the whole point of the movie would be gruesome kills, and that's not the point of this movie. It's real, like you said, it's like a cat and mouse game. It's more of a thriller type movie,
right?
And watching it back, I was kind of struck by that because over the years, again, like I said, I haven't seen this in many, many years. In my mind, you kind of equate it with Scream because they came out so close together, and it's kind of like the runner-up to Scream, I guess, in a way, from that time period. And so in your mind, you kind of think of it as like a slasher movie and the fisherman going after people with this hook, but it's really smarter than that. It's a mystery, and it's a thriller, and like you said, there's fake out almost deaths, near deaths, and you're getting this smart look at what happened to these characters after they did something really bad and how it affected their lives and how it affected their interpersonal relationships and stuff. And that's not something you would typically see in a slasher like this. It was really interesting.
And it's funny. Yeah, and Johnny Galecki's character, actually, if you think about it, really doesn't need to die except for the fact that he's kind of in the way. And it's, again, he's a victim. Just as he's a victim of circumstance for being even like thought of as part of it all. Because he's still associating with this group. And it's also a good way to fake, to kind of give a little fake out of it because like they try and make you think it's him, but then he died. But and then so you're like, okay, now they're trying to make it look like this. So it's like, it's like it was weird. It was like a death that like could have easily not have happened. But it was a great plot tool to make it happen.
Well, I think I read some trivia that was not originally supposed to happen. He was not originally supposed to die, but they put that death in there because they felt like they needed a death scene to provide some sense of fear because nobody had died yet. And you can
poor Johnny Galecki, man. And then later on, he has to room with Sheldon. I swear, he's got a raw deal.
But if you think about it, if it took 40 minutes for him to die, what if he had not?
Oh God!
Died?
Yeah.
You'd been an hour some into the movie before anybody got killed, and it's like, how would you create a sense of suspense if nobody's died yet and you're almost through the movie? I can understand it.
That kind of gives a little bit of the classic slasher form of a little mayhem because you're like, okay, wait. You're like, okay, now anyone can die. So it puts you back to that fear because if you think about it, if they don't put that in, how most of the time if you get, the fear you get from horror movies, if you kind of almost project yourself in that situation. But if you're you're watching this movie, you're like, okay, well, if I'm not part of that core 4, then everyone else is safe. So I'll just be part of them. But now that kind of throws that off the table a little bit too because you're like, all right, he's not really part of it. He didn't do anything wrong. I mean, yeah, he was there, but he, and maybe that's why kind of like the whoever. I mean, let's put it this way: if you haven't seen this already, then
yeah, I'm not
sorry.
worried about spoilers.
But the fisherman, why why Ben Willis went after him was because he was on the scene, so you got to so he even though he was there temporarily, if you don't know what I guess you could explain it by that. But again, though, it also does make the sense that it kind of gives you that like little bit of a mayhem moment, like, okay, no one's truly safe in this movie, in this town.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was just watching it back. I really enjoyed it, but in a different way. I think back in the day when I first saw it, I kind of enjoyed it because of Scream, and I knew it was another Kevin Williamson movie, and it kind of just had that same kind of vibe to it. It's definitely not as comedic as Scream. Obviously, Scream was a lot more witty and had a lot more humor and stuff. This one really doesn't have any humor. It's actually a pretty dark film if you think about it. There's not a whole lot to lighten it up. And there's not
like a lot of humor in there. I
mean, there's no like funny character. None of that. It's kind of a grim story.
Yeah, there's no like goofball. There's no really goofy moments. I mean, other than like the there might have been a couple of typical classic slasher like one-liner type of deals, like little things, but nothing like like classic laugh out like loud in the theater like Scream had those, but this not having that, there's not that type of movie. But you know what I kind of equate this movie to? I kind of equate this to one of those like my horror slasher equivalent of like one of those, like a house beer, one of those beers that you always like to keep around, that you'll always like when you don't have the elite horror movie, but you want to just throw in a good one,
Yeah. So, I guess we'll run through some of the trivia here.
There's a lot here. We'll just pick some.
Yeah,
pick some good ones.
We'll just kind of alternate, Brian, if you want to pick ones that you like. But the one I wanted to pick out here was when we talked about the department store or the antique store, which was the Shivers antique store. I misspoke earlier when I said that was in Southport. It's actually in Burgaw, and the reason I said I had been in it is because I actually have been in it, but I was remembering my visit to it in Burgaw, because Burgaw is another town that's fairly close. It's maybe 20, 30-minute drive from here, and they have a blueberry festival every year. It's actually supposed to be next weekend, but I think it got canceled because of the COVID stuff. And the blueberry festival is a lot of fun. Burgaw is a really tiny town, but this store, Harold's Department Store, is one of the stores we always would go to when we went to the Blueberry Festival.
Ah, neat.
You could tell it has the same structure and frame as the old department stores. So
I love those.
Yeah, so
there's
really
cool. A couple of my mom. There's one in my mom's town that's like that.
Yeah.
So those are cool. The one I'm gonna do is actually one, Tim, that you'd probably. This is probably one that you should do, but I'll do it because it's. I love to be able to promote this person who's the topic of this. So Jennifer Hewitt had just appeared along, former Scream Queen. I don't know why. Well, I guess when this trivia was written, she was former, because she, as we know, she's super active still as a Scream Queen. Jamie Lee Curtis in House Arrest in 1997. Prior to filming this movie, and was surprised to see she was also filming a movie in North Carolina at the same time. So, as we always like to say, Tim's got in Wilmington and North Carolina has a huge, big filming contingent there. So, And she said, Jennifer said that Jamie came over to the soundstage to wish her luck on her first horror film and would come over every day to give her a hug. That's just, because I want to share that, because that's how awesome is Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, anyone that, that knows who Jamie Lee Curtis is, and I don't know how you don't, has to love her. I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about Jamie Lee Curtis, because she's amazing.
This one was really creepy, actually. So writer Lois Duncan, who did the original novel, was vehemently opposed to her book being reworked into a slasher film. This was due to the fact that her youngest daughter was murdered by an unknown assailant in 1989.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah. I could see that, and that's got to be tough, it's like you have this bittersweet thing where your book is being made into a movie, and then but yet there's a mirror image of a major life tragedy in there. So because I heard that a lot of the book was different than there was a lot of differences from the book to the movie.
Yeah, the book was not a slasher type novel. Yeah. It was more of and it wasn't even a fisherman. It was a boy. And it's later on in the trivia there was a blurb about it. But yeah, you're right. The book was completely different from the movie.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to skip to. This is just an interesting one because it kind of goes about why how I was saying how it's the core four is in danger, but why someone else might be. And so here, this is interesting. So, when Julie tells Helen about the note, there are a couple of shots of Elsa looking at them. And Elsa, of course, is the sister. It says Elsa is also said to have been in David Egan's class at school. In the book, Elsa is also a suspect. So that's kind of probably like, one, a nod to the book, but two, also kind of putting her why she's kind of almost a target, too. Because remember, they were trying to make you think it was him coming, the David Egan character. So, yeah, so there's a lot. So there's that's kind of one of the little things that I think that they said was obviously different from the book, but yet they still found a way to give a connection in the movie. So,
yeah, this one's a little blurb. This film is included on Roger Ebert's most hated list, which doesn't really surprise me.
He hates all the movies I like.
Yeah, I know he hates horror movies in general, I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. We talked about the differences between the book and the movie. I guess we should mention that Ryan Phillippe. I cannot say his last name. Ryan Phillippe.
He doesn't deserve his name pronounced after his meanness in this movie.
And of course, him and Sarah Michelle Gellar would co-star again in Cruel Intentions. And this is funny. I never noticed this, but it makes an oblique reference to this one featuring a magazine cover with Jennifer Love Hewitt on it. And Phillippe's character gets hit by a car fatally in Cruel Intentions. And also, of course,
he survived in this one.
Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. got married, and then they went on to star in Scooby-Doo. So, a lot of...
And then if you want a Kevin Williamson collection, also Matthew Lillard was in that movie. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, from Scream. So, so there's a lot of... there's almost like this weird shared Kevin Williamson universe that I'm sure you can piece together if you so choose. But I guess that's good. I mean, most of the other stuff is kind of generic-y stuff. But here, the one final one I'll leave is just like, it's funny. It says the second film scripted by Kevin Williamson that also stars a female lead from Party of Five, which was, of course, Jennifer Hewitt here and Neve Campbell in Scream.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Again, that connected universe.
All right. So, Brian, what was our beer pairing this week?
So I thought I found a good one. It's called Fisherman's Burn. It's a spiced herb beer. It's from Cape Ann Brewing in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And anyone knows Gloucester, you've seen that. It was featured, it was kind of represented in the Perfect Storm, that movie. So again, not big fishing village. So this is only 6%. It's not too bad. It's a pale ale brewed with our Fisherman's Burn habanero hot sauce. Crisp with a gentle burn in the back of the throat. It'll wake you up in the morning. And I read it that way because there was a question mark there, so I don't know why it's like that. So I don't. Yeah, it was like Ron. I felt like Ron Burgundy, like good evening, San Diego.
I'll tell you, the first time I tried one of these hot sauce beers, and I thought, man, this is going to be the most disgusting thing on the planet. There's no way this is going to taste good, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like it's an interesting.
Something I like about it.
It's just an interesting. It's not something I would seek out by any means, but it's an interesting sensation, I guess. You drink this cold beer and then you get this hot, spicy burn on the back. It's kind of
burn. Yeah, well, I was big on that habanero sculpin.
Yes, that's the one I had
for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's one I tried that I'm so sad this never made. It was at a beer festival. We went with the Beard Man, actually. It was Julie and I went with the Beard Man to that Hops and Props beer festival that was the Cradle of Aviation on Long Island, and there was a microbrew that was doing a special one, and they had it was a Carolina Reaper.
Oh gosh, I just got one of those in my backyard right now.
Yeah, I know your brother does too, right?
Yeah.
He does. He makes it. Yeah, I love that pepper. Number one, and two, it was put in a beer, but they did it so well that it was like this, it was like the perfect burn as you drank the beer. Not like, usually the other ones are like after it.
Yeah.
But this one was like as you drank it, you got like the little like singe. It was so good.
Wow.
Oh, it was mixed perfectly. I don't remember the brewery. I don't think it ever, like I said, it was a microbrewery. So it's like almost like one of those like, home brews basically. But this thing was good. So, but yeah, so check that out. Cape Ann Brewing out of Gloucester, Mass.
Nice. All right, guys. So time for our triple threat answer. Man, people had some difficulty with this one.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
And no one got it. This is the first time so many people guessed and no answer, and then he just gave up. And you know what? And I double checked. Tim and I went back. Tim's like, "Did we make it intentionally confusing?" I said, "Well, no more than we normally do." And some people were so close. I basically gave them hints, and they still didn't get it. And I'm like, I said, maybe it was a better crafted trivia than we thought.
I thought this was going to be so easy, and then I was like you. I thought, oh my god, did we misword something, did we not get our facts right? But I think this one holds up. So we had asked for a movie, and the answer was Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives. So let's explain that one.
Yes.
So clue number one: this was the first film in the series to have the main character mentioned in the title. And of course, Friday the 13th Part 6 was the first to have Jason in the title.
Yes.
Clue number two: the main protagonists in this film have been played by two different actors. This is referring to Tommy Jarvis, who was played by Tom Matthews, but previously played in Part 4 by Corey Feldman, and Part 5 by Corey Feldman and John Shepard.
Yeah, see, and that was... So, is that where we screwed it up? Wait a minute.
Oh, had been played by two... Yeah, or had previously been played by two different...
Previously played by two... I think we read it that way, though. It was previously played by two different actors. Yes. Oh, no, so that's correct. I think we were... When we read it in the first time, I think we redid that. We just never changed it on the forum.
Yeah, I'm almost positive we did say that.
Yeah.
Clue number three: this movie is the shortest in the franchise, and at 86 minutes, Friday the 13th Part 6 is indeed the shortest out of all the Friday films. So there you go. Friday.
Yeah, and so many people were on it. What I think it was both our buddies, David's McHugh and Terry. One of them, I think it was David Terry, said, he goes, "Yeah, well, I know it wasn't Friday the 13th," and or something like that, and I'm like. But I didn't want to say. And then he's like, "Let me go shoot for another franchise." And then I think it was I might have got it mixed up. But then I think it was David McHugh was going. Let's see. It's not Leatherface. It's not. He literally said every franchise but that one. I think so. It was funny because I don't think anyone realizes. I think it's funny. I really think it was the first one that stumps it because I think a lot. People forget maybe the subtitle was Jason Lives. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is, Part 6. So people are so used with Friday the 13th by just going by...
I don't know.
By literally like, oh yeah, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. The only one I think they say is they'll say, oh yeah, final chapter. But most other ones, they'll say, oh yeah, Part 5 or 6, Friday the 13th 6.
Yeah.
They actually leave the subtitles off of when you talk about Friday the 13th, and I think that may be what was stumping people. I was trying to really figure out what it was, and I think that might be it because... How many times have you referred to the Friday the 13th movies other than Part 2?
Yeah, you always say Part 6. Unless it's like Jason Goes to Hell. You always say Jason Goes to Hell because that's what it was called.
Yeah, because you don't say Friday the 13th Part 9.
Right, because it wasn't really that.
Jason Goes to Hell. Yeah, it really wasn't. Because they couldn't say Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
That's why that's the only movie that doesn't have Friday the 13th in it. Well, no, I guess Jason X. But yeah, Friday the 13th, you could not say. They didn't have the rights because it was New Line at that point. So that's why it was called Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday.
Yeah.
That's all it said. Because you can't copyright the day. You can only copyright Friday the 13th, apparently.
All right, so we're going to give you a redo, the do-over. And I think this one should be easy.
Yeah, I kind of once I realized that people are struggling, I went really...
Yeah, so we're going to give you another shot at guessing a movie. So we were looking for a movie. Okay, clue number one. My film's antagonist was a combination of elements from two real urban legends. Clue number two. One important piece of the antagonist's costume was difficult to get due to a hesitant blacksmith. Clue number three. There were insects bred especially for this film. So there you go.
Yes.
Should be an easy one.
I think if you're on the right track, 3 we should cement your answer.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Brian. So we're up for another Zamondo, but we've been discussing behind the scenes. Maybe we'll be replacing this segment with something else. Just because we're kind of getting to the end of the number of Zamondos that are interesting in the book, and also just kind of ready for a little bit of a change. But we'd love to get some ideas from you guys on what you'd like to replace the Zamondo with that would maybe spur some discussion. So we'll have to think about it. If you guys have any ideas, just send them to our Gmail at civilgorepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and kind of let us know maybe what you would like to see in place of the Zamondo when it inevitably dies.
Yes, it'll Zamondo itself out the door.
Yes.
But here's the one for today. So this is, I think, I don't know. I think this is to me, this is kind of an easy one. But so, would you rather, Tim, eat 16 ounces of coffee skin? And what the coffee skin is, and by definition in this question, is the film on top after the cup has been left out for 2 days.
Ugh, okay.
Or 2 gallons of beer foam.
How many gallons of beer foam?
2 gallons of beer foam.
Oh, I think I'd have to go with the beer foam.
Me too. Because now here's the thing. You know, you can only drink that so fast, and eventually the foam will start to, I guess, dissipate. So yeah, 2 gallons may start as 2 gallons, but when you're done with it, it's not going to be 2 gallons. So, but anyway, besides that, I mean, could you imagine just eating like 16 ounces? Is that a pound?
Yes.
I mean, that's a pound of, like, so just think of what a pound of a meat is, and picture that of just being dried coffee. I don't even know how you collect that. How many cups are we talking about?
And I love coffee,
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I don't,
Me
not
too.
about coffee skin, nah.
No, coffee. Sorry, coffee. It should be in the form it's in. I mean, maybe if you want to do it in a candy, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, iced coffee, hot coffee, maybe coffee candy and ice cream, stuff like that, desserts. But no,
But beer foam, I
not
mean,
in skin.
somebody pours it a little too fast or something, and the head's a little bit bigger than it should be. Who cares? Just sip that thing
Yeah.
down.
Plus, it's from beer.
It's beer.
for
It's
God's
still
sake,
beer.
yeah.
Beer foam is still beer. Coffee skin, I would argue, is not still coffee.
No, yeah, it is not. Okay, so the facts, though, on this one are pretty funny here in classic. There's some weird things here. So, first one is, an archaic law allows that a Saudi woman can be granted a divorce if her husband fails to provide her with coffee.
Oh, well, that Olivia
Wow.
would agree with that. And in fact, she
Yeah,
says
I
that all the
think-
time. Like, if I get up before her and I don't make coffee, she goes, "This is grounds for divorce, you know."
Oh, my God. Grounds. I
Yes,
get it.
hey.
Look at Olivia stealing your
I know.
puns away from yeah, no, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think just either way, on either end of that, if there's coffee to be made and it's not made
Yeah.
at that time, yeah. Okay, so then here's that one. It says, a man in Laverne, Tennessee called 911 to report that he and his wife were fighting and he needed the police to come to his house and stop her from pouring out all his beer. Now, I know I'm safe from that ever even remotely happening.
No, yeah,
because
that's never gonna happen.
Julie may like beer even more than me. So, yeah, so that's not happening over here. But, yeah, that's kind of funny. Can you imagine that call? Oh, wait, there's one more. There's actually one more. Sorry, one more fact, and it kind of goes to what my reasoning was before. It says, beer foam will subside if you rub your finger along your nose or rotate it in your ear canal and then stick it in the beer.
Ew, no.
I know.
No.
Like I'd rather drink the coffee skin and the foam than stick in my finger, my
Ugh.
ear, and then in my beer.
No.
Oh, I made a rhyme. Didn't even know. Okay. Oh, so yeah. So next week we're doing Fantasy Island.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, that's that one. Yeah. So we'll talk all about that. The Blumhouse Fantasy Island, and we'll have part 2 of the amazing Lauren Marie Taylor.
Yeah, guys, don't miss it. Should be a lot of fun. So we'll see you back here next week. And remember, don't go running over any men on strange seaside cliffs.
And just remember, Tim, I know what